This is video 2 of a 10-video series focusing on an overview of Alfresco Process Services Workspace UI and the Business Process Model Notation BPMN editor. Process Services Workspace is the main UI for business analysts to design and build their workflow processes and for end users to run workflows, interact with the tasks, and see process analytics. Let's go ahead and log in as an administrator. Process Services can use any LDAP-compliant directory to authenticate users as well as integrate with your current SSO frameworks. So we will log in using a password that will be validated on an LDAP directory. Using role-based access controls, as an administrator, I can see all functions and features available to me. On this landing page, we can see multiple tiles, including the app designer, which allows the business analyst to build the workflows, the task app, which is where a user can interact with running workflows, identity management, where an admin can manage authentication and role-based access, the analytics app, where an authorized user can view process reports, and finally the remaining tiles, which are published workflows that a user can select to run and manage their processes. Let us focus on the app designer. The app designer allows a business analyst to build and manage processes, forms, decision tables, application data models, form stencils, and BPMN editor stencils. In follow-on videos, we will describe more of these features, but in this video, we will provide an overview of processes and specifically the Business Process Model Notation editor. Clicking on Processes provides you by default a tiled list of all processes owned by the logged on user, which you can filter, search, and add favorites. Every process is protected by access controls to prevent any unwanted access or modification. Let's now review the BPMN visual editor by opening and editing one of these existing processes. The BPMN editor consists of 4 main frames. On the left is the rich palette of BPMN constructs, or notations grouped by the related functions. In the center middle is the canvas, where the BPMN constructs are dragged and dropped to build a workflow. On the bottom is the properties frame that describes the metadata associated to the BPMN object selected. And finally, at the top is the tools bar where the business analyst can save, validate, cut and paste, redo, undo, delete objects, zoom, and so on. Let's quickly describe the important BPMN constructs in the palette, starting with the concept of activities. Activities are basically tasks that could be human-based or machine-based. User tasks are human manual tasks where a user interacts with a form. Machine-based tasks, or tasks that are automated, could be services, scripts, written in JavaScript or Groovy, decision tasks, to leverage the DMN decision model notation rules, tasks to send emails, tasks to send and receive messages, tasks to communicate with a REST endpoint, and tasks to generate documents based on intelligent templates. Structural components give the user the ability to add sub-processes or call other processes. Gateways are critical to control the process flow. Inclusive and exclusive gateways leverage choices being made manually by users or automatically by decision tables or other business logic. Exclusive gateways evaluate the outgoing sequence flows in the order they are defined, but only the first one that evaluates to true will be selected. In contrast, the inclusive gateway evaluates all outgoing flows, and all that evaluate to true will be forked in parallel. Parallel gateways do not rely on any conditions. The parallel gateway simply forks multiple parallel flows or can join multiple parallel flows arriving at the gateway. Now let's move on to another important concept, BPMN events. BPMN supports 4 types of events: signals, messages, timers, and errors. Signals are identified by a simple unique ID. When a signal is thrown, it can be caught by any active handler listening for that signal ID in any running process. Hence, signal events are a great way for inter-process communication. In contrast, message events are intended for only one recipient handler, and they carry a message payload. Timer events are used to trigger exceptions in tasks, start processes or subprocesses, or affect flow of execution based on a time period or a repeatable interval. And finally, BPMN error events can be caught within tasks to enable error exception handling within the process. These events are scoped as start events, boundary events, intermediate events, and end events. Let's start with the start events. You can start a process with no trigger, or you can start a process with a signal, with a message, with a timer, or with an error event. For example, you can start a process every day at 12 p.m. using the timer event. Boundary events. Boundary events are attached or bounded to an activity or subprocess. Upon the trigger of a timer, signal, message, or an error boundary event, the associated running activity will either be canceled and the process will continue the flow of execution or spawn a new execution flow. For example, if the activity needs a daily reminder to complete the task, a timer boundary event can be used on this activity and configured to run once a day to send an email to the task owner to remind he or she to complete his or her active task. Intermediate catching and throwing events are great for inter-process communication. You can have 2 processes running in parallel as peers, or as a parent and child. One of the processes can be blocked, waiting to catch a signal thrown from the other process. This throwing and catching of signals can be used to create inter-process dependencies. Intermediate catching events are similar to boundary events, but they are not bounded to any activity or subprocess. For example, you can wait to catch a signal, message, or timer anywhere in the process flow using an intermediate catching event. Finally, you can end a process execution with none-end event, nothing extra happening. An error event, an error is thrown, or a terminate event, the process is killed. To make processes easier to read, business analysts can add swim lanes and text annotation artifacts or notes. Last but not least, the palette provides out-of-the-box integration tasks to publish process data into Alfresco, Box, and Google Drive. And that concludes a summary overview of the Alfresco Process Services BPMN editor. Thank you.